Welcome to Status Quo, your home for gaming trends past and present. This is Queasy Crayfish, and as always, I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Mars Vindicator. Mars Vindicator, tell me, how does the wind blow today?
There's wind today? I don't know.
Oh yeah, big nor'easter. Yeah, this is episode 8.
Wasn't supposed to make it past 5. Jokes on you, we still alive.
Damn. Taking it back. Kanye West.
Right.
Who's already made an appearance on Status Quo, by the way. But anyway, we're going to be talking about pretty much just a singular topic today, although different branches of that. We're going to be talking about Sonic the Hedgehog. But first, before we get into that, because it's going to be, I'm sure we'll get hyped up and fired up about it because, we just...
Oh, yeah, because I love Sonic.
Well, we do. We both love and hate Sonic. And love Sonic and hate Sonic. So anyway, let's get started with our favorite segment, Flake News.
Flake News.
And, oh yeah, and I'll just be honest that it's after E3 now. There's just not a lot of great news out there, so these might be a little dull or whatever. But anyway, we'll get Mars Vindicator's reactions to these. So number one, Red Dead Redemption 2 might be coming to PC.
So, I mean, of course it is. Like,
it might be coming to PC. That's literally how it was worded.
Yeah, yeah, and like another Grand Theft Auto game might be coming out in the future, but it's like,
you never know
if Rockstar wants to make money. So,
yeah, exactly. So, Flake News,
right?
And speaking of Rockstar, we have a GTA 5 online adding nightclubs in a new update next month.
Now, what I will say about that is I have very, very distinct memories of playing Vice City and going to the Malibu Club.
Oh, yes.
So I do like Grand Theft Auto clubs, and that will probably be cool online. So, I mean, I don't play GTA Online, but that actually might be kind of cool.
Okay, so we got some real news there. Dr. Octopus might be in the new Spider-Man game for PlayStation 4.
I mean, like...
might be again.
It's Spider-Man. It's a game. It'll have levels. Those levels will have bosses. How is one not Doc Ock? I'm saying he's going to be fighting fucking...
this was big news to whoever posted this. I don't remember now, GameSpot or whatever.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, Doc Ock is the shit and so Spider-Man, but it's like... You know what I'm saying? That's like, it's like, yeah, like that's, to me, that's like reporting like Magneto may be a villain in X-Men Legends 3. Like,
well, yeah, I mean, it was also, not only was it big news, it was like very clickbaity. They did one of those like, rumor has it that this villain will be in the new Spider-Man. Click to find out more. Doc Ock could be in there. So, yeah, that's Flake News.
Surprise.
This one you might find interesting. Microsoft and Razer could be working on Xbox keyboard and mouse support.
Like, okay, that is very cool. It's cool. But it's like, okay, I'm a strong believer in people can do whatever the hell they want. You know what I'm saying? But like, if I catch you mouse and keyboarding an Xbox One X instead of just having a PC, especially after all the stuff that Microsoft has like announced, like every single one of our games, first party games, exclusives will be on PC. Like, it's kind of like, come on at this point, I mean, yeah, like, what is going to be on the Xbox? What are you going to play, like backwards compatible Guardian Heroes with the mouse and keyboard on the Xbox?
Oh,
One
yeah.
X?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, so, yeah.
Well, my thinking was that they were going to try to bring like MMO stuff to Xbox One. Like they were going to be, like Dota 2 or something. Like they were going to try to tap into those markets and get people on consoles playing that as well with crossplay or whatever.
Well, then play them with a controller. Or, well, no, honestly, because, like, for example, like, Final Fantasy 14 it has crossplay and is on PC and PS4, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the cool things they did to get like console gamers into that type of game is make a very good control scheme that works with the DualShock 4. You know, because to me, I just feel like if you care that much to play an MMO with a mouse and keyboard, you probably should be playing on PC.
Oh, for sure.
So
for sure. I mean, that's where they're supposed to be.
Exactly. You know, Microsoft next step in turning their console to a computer.
Well, you know, let's not forget that. I mean, this is being presented as news, but I mean, it was not that uncommon. I mean, I did Dreamcast, I believe, had keyboard. I mean, like this has been done before. You know, like the idea of attaching mouse and keyboard to your console, I think has been broached before. It's not like it's some brand new thing.
Well, yeah, but Sega did not announce that every first party game they had would be on PC as well.
Right.
With cross platform, you know, like, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah. And like the price point of a gaming PC to a Dreamcast at that time was a very large gap.
Oh, yeah.
So, Dreamcast was now $500.
So is this flake news or is this just weird news?
It's just weird.
Weird news. Okay. And lastly, we have popular Twitch streamers temporarily banned thanks to DMCA takedowns. So I guess basically the story was some rapper or something. People were like playing his music on their streams, and his label issued these DMCA takedowns to Twitch, and Twitch had to comply. And so people that were streaming and had this guy's music up on their stream were taken down and banned for 24 hours.
I mean, what are we going to talk about next? You know, Hideo Kojima's niece had a baby. Like, you know, like there's game news
and then there's related.
Yeah. And then there's like game related news. Yeah. It's like, okay. And then too, I just feel like, you know, if you want to play music that bad, just for real, just stream on YouTube and they could just monetize your video.
Yeah. Easily avoided.
You know, so who gives a shit? That's what I got to say about that one.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised. I mean, like taking people out is kind of extreme, and usually they just mute your video, but apparently just taking people down. So anyway, that's flake news. Anyway, that's our post E3 flake news recap, and you know, hopefully we've got some real news coming up in the next week or so. But anyway, enough of that. Let's get to the topics at hand, or the topic at hand. Sonic the Hedgehog. June 23rd apparently is Sonic the Hedgehog's birthday, and that just passed. And, you know, it passed mostly without incident. There was no real announcements or anything other than a small sale on Sony and Nintendo platforms in which, you know, already cheaply priced games were made slightly cheaper, meaning, you know, the current Sonic games. And, you know, it's just good, though, I think, to take this time to kind of reflect on Sonic the Hedgehog and the series that it once was and the series that it is now and all the different. I mean, there's a ton of variety in this series, whatever you may think of it. And you know, just the attitudes from the beginning to where we are now. It's definitely changed leaps and bounds. Because I remember back in, you know, Mars and I were both born in the late 80s. Grew up in the 90s and grew up with Sonic the Hedgehog being one of the biggest video game characters. Well, I mean, quite honestly, he was the biggest video game character in the world. And he was the most recognizable, according to Wikipedia or something like that. I believe it says he was. Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, he'd float in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. He had multiple TV shows, comic books, you know, you name it. Pasta, shoes, merchandise everywhere. You know, Sonic was commercials, you know, you name it. And I mean, yeah, what's your memories of early days Sonic the Hedgehog?
I mean, yeah, he was just ubiquitous back then. You know, I remember having like a pair of like Sonic the Hedgehog high top sneakers that like I wore in the kindergarten. You know, yeah, Sonic pasta. I remember getting that. You know, and it was like, you know, as a kid who like loved Sonic, you know, there was like a Sonic on. There was Sonic on everything. You know, it's like whatever I wanted to do. You know, there was Sonic on it. You know, and then I mean, but to go along with that, I mean, the games were also just very dope. You know what I'm saying? So all of the, I mean, you had Sonic 1, 2, and 3, Sonic and Knuckles. And I guess, I mean, okay, honestly, even back then, I mean, we had Spinball, you know what I'm saying, and stuff like that. But, overall, there was just this
Mean Bean Machine.
Right, yeah, like, it was just such a different situation than what's going on today, because, back then it was just hit after hit, show after show, you had more than one show. Like, it was just wild, appearances in parades, so.
Well, and another thing that I think people forget about, especially new Sonic fans, is that a lot of the juice that came from Sonic was this competitive aspect to the character, because Sonic went hand in hand with Sega. I mean, Sega and Sonic were synonymous, basically. And it was known, that if you were a Sonic fan or a Sega fan, that you were probably, clowning the Nintendo fans that, lived down the street from you or whatever, because like that was, not as cool or not as edgy or whatever. And there was this rivalry that was very well known. I mean, it was like Tupac and Biggie. It was like, it was a big thing back then, Mario with Nintendo, Sonic with Sega. And that's now that the character is just, third party cross platform, appears on everything. Just entirely that competitive aspect of the character is just gone now.
No, like, yeah, he most definitely is. I mean, one of the funny things was actually just yesterday, with some other friends of mine, I was watching like 90s Sega commercials. And yeah, I mean, you had Genesis does what Nintendo don't. Like there was like this commercial that was like, it was actually like really similar to those like what were those like, what's that college, the Everest College, like, hey, you're sitting at home on your couch. Like they had like this black dude that would just show up on the TV and be like, hey, you seen the Sega CD? And it's like, what are you waiting for Nintendo to make one? Like it was like wild. It was like literally just like the Everest commercials. And so, yeah, I mean, like it was just, their whole scheme was competitive. And then Sonic was just like the embodiment of all of that. So he had the edge, he was cooler, it was, the attitude, I mean, well, and even bigger than that, it really fit the 90s. You know what I'm saying? Because that was the thing back then. All this, edge and like, I mean, Sonic didn't have rock music in his games, but he kind of fit that persona a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he did have dope, hip hop. Speaking of this, also, rest in peace, Michael Jackson.
Oh yeah, yeah. Let's not forget to illustrate how big Sonic was back then, because I mean, I feel like we can't stress this enough, because people look at Sonic now as just kind of like this character from the past, right. Who has this long legacy of games, but to stress how big of a character he was and how AAA superstar he was. I mean, he had Michael Jackson confirmed involved with composing the music in one of his games.
Exactly. And even if you don't want to talk about that, I mean, I guess this isn't like Sonic directly, but I mean, Michael Jackson definitely worked with Sega. He had the arcade and the Genesis game. And then I have a picture of Michael Jackson at the Sega theme park in Japan where he like autographs and stuff. So Michael Jackson was definitely down with Sega and definitely down with Sonic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the one they call the king of pop.
Yeah, literally, like, like imagine if like, I don't know, like who, like Beyonce made the music to the next Mario, or like, like Beyonce, or like, I don't know, give me somebody, not Justin Bieber.
Taylor Swift.
Yeah, Taylor Swift. Like if Taylor Swift did the music for the next Mario game, something like that.
But even bigger still, because Michael Jackson, I mean, he has like almost no equal.
That's what, yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely not one today. So, sure. But yeah, that's that. Like Sonic, I mean, yeah, he was just huge. I mean, there's nothing else to say about it. I mean, he totally sold the Genesis. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the Genesis was out for 2 years before Sonic came out. And there were some decent titles before that, but when people think of the Genesis, they associate it with Sonic.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, you had how many games total on there? I mean, multiple, including compilations as well. So,
right, yeah. I mean,
all over
like on 6-pack, and yeah, I mean, it was crazy. And then too, I mean, like we were getting these back to back. Like Sonic 1 was 91, Sonic 2 was 92, Sonic CD was 93, and then, Sonic 3 and then Knuckles were 94. So this was just, it was just a 2D Sonic game out like at all time.
Yeah, it's a dynasty.
Exactly. And, and one thing that I think they did well back then, which I don't think they do good today, is like they didn't, bombard us with characters. They, Sonic 2 brought about Tails, then you got Amy in Sonic CD, and then you got Knuckles in Sonic 3, and so, there was Sonic, and then he had a supporting cast. But then which was cooler with that was like, on the TV show and on the comic books, which were, more done on, on this side of the lake, he had a whole nother set, cast of characters, that he had for those two shows, so Sonic was putting on all type of, little strange, animal characters. You know what I'm saying?
Princess Sally,
Antoine, Bunny,
Rotor, Bunny. Yep.
Yeah.
All of those. Well,
and those shows were dope.
Yeah. I was just going to say, speaking of those shows, and this was another point that you had made at some point, was that like that show, not Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. So there was two shows that were running simultaneously here. The one that was just called Sonic the Hedgehog, which is known now in the fandom as Satam, Saturday AM, went head to head with like first generation Power Rangers on Saturday morning cartoons. So, I mean, like right. You're talking about Sonic the Hedgehog going head to head with another huge phenomenon, I mean, as if Mario and Nintendo and all that wasn't enough, going head to head with Power Rangers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like huge phenomenons. And I mean, yes. And I mean, we were born in the late 80s. So, we were the last generation to get the whole Saturday morning cartoon thing. And so, if any of you are, a bit younger and don't quite understand that whole thing, that was when the cartoons came on. I mean, Nickelodeon, that was like a separate situation because that was a whole channel, but every other channel's cartoons, the cream of the crop was saved for Saturday.
Right.
And so for that to come on and have like a similar time block, on a different station as like the Power Rangers, like that shows you something big because God damn it, like if Power Rangers was on, like I'd want to be showing,
infomercials.
Best thing I could show, well, or that, yeah, like either
exactly. If you can't compete, you're showing infomercials, and if you can, you're going to be showing the best thing like you possibly can.
Best thing you can, yeah. And Sonic was definitely not an infomercial, that's for sure.
No.
And I mean, and then there was that, and then and that same show, a lot of the characters and things, that was all in the comic book as well, and that was a pretty big comic back then.
Oh yeah, the Archie comic, which actually had been going continuously up until very recently. I think just the last year or two, the Archie Sonic the Hedgehog comic had been continuing with all kinds of branching storylines, and you name it. I mean, there were spin-off comics there was Knuckles had his own comic series, Tails had a sub series. Right. You're talking 48-page specials. I mean, it was a big deal. And I used to read those. I used to get those, every month whenever they came out. And it was great. I loved that story as well. That the whole, which I guess is mostly just an American Sega creation. The Freedom Fighters and Mobius and all of that stuff, all of those characters, which didn't appear in the games. And I think even if you look in like the Japanese manuals for the games, it's like a completely different story as well. So, I mean, there were some distinctions there, which ended up not really getting reconciled, unfortunately, later on. But at the time, it was awesome.
Of course, this is all, we could, like I said, we could go on for days about, Sonic SpaghettiOs and things like that. But, just to show, how, something that came just as big could fall just as quickly. All it took was pretty much for them to not have a main game on the Saturn, and then boom, Sonic is done.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about that, because Sonic had dominated the Sega Genesis, and was everywhere. And Sega comes out with the Saturn. And everyone's expectation, obviously, because especially back then, because back then you had this mascot thing that, like I was saying, with Mario was Nintendo, Sonic was Sega, even had Crash Bandicoot was PlayStation, and so there was like the character tied to the console, and so it was everyone's expectation that with the new Sega console, there's going to be a big flagship Sonic the Hedgehog game. So Sega Saturn comes out. And for whatever reason, Sonic Team wanted to go off and do other things. So we ended up, the only Sonic games that we got on the Saturn were Sonic 3D Blast, which was a port of the Genesis Sonic 3D Blast. I believe that one did come before the Saturn version. Sonic R, which is a extremely half-assed racing game. And I mean, to say the least. And Sonic Jam, which was basically just a compilation of the Genesis games with this little extra 3D world that you could run around in to kind of give everyone a taste of what they had been expecting from Sonic on the Saturn. Everyone had been expecting a big 3D jump. We're going to see Sonic in 3D. Finally, we're going to see all these amazing things. And that was all we got. And that really... I think, that's when Sonic hits a brick wall as far as, he dropped off in popularity massively, and it really took a pretty bold and pretty powerful advertising campaign for the Dreamcast to even get him back to a state of relevance at that point.
Right. No, definitely. So yeah, it just... that's that pretty much summed it all up. After this huge, era of Sonic just being everywhere, he just had this, this fall from grace. Don't get us wrong. Mario was definitely not, unheard of at all, at that time. And so he just, remained where he was. And though, at one point in time, they were pretty much equal rivals, Mario just pulled ahead, and then it never went back,
No.
And so,
well, because even with the Dreamcast, you got Sonic Adventure. It was a big game, sold incredibly well. But by the time Sonic Adventure 2 came out, Dreamcast was already canceled, and the only other Sonic games you had was Sonic Shuffle. And I think, was that it for the Dreamcast?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
that was it.
Games.
Yeah, and so like the I guess his in the same way that the characters were tied to their respective consoles. You can see how Sonic's fall from grace kind of mirrored Sega's fall from grace in that sense, and so in the same way that Sonic Adventure 2 comes out at a time when the Dreamcast is canceled, when they're not making any more units. They're kind of winding down, getting out of the console development, first-party scenario. Sonic shifts to third-party, and you get a whole new set of fans that came in at that exact moment when Sonic goes third-party, goes to the GameCube, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, the Sonic Heroes, what's that other one? Sonic Riders, everyone's favorite, Shadow the Hedgehog. And you started to get this litany of just really mediocre games and games that were not necessarily even that bad. Like they weren't like offensively bad in all situations. But when you look at the place that the character was at and how big he was and how, like we were saying, Michael Jackson, Jaleel White, going up against the Power Rangers, to suddenly coming out with games that are 5 and 6 out of 10, it's really upsetting to old school fans like us.
Right. No, yeah, it most definitely is. That was just one of those things that, hey, yeah, it just really sucked. And this is one of those things that, I've definitely been through, a whole bunch of times over the years. And, it's just something that, at this point in time, it's just like the unfortunate truth, and, so I was definitely very, very upset, to have games like Heroes or, like the big blunder that was Sonic 06 come out.
Yeah.
But, hopefully now, here in 2018, we're hopefully in an upswing,
Yeah, I think we definitely, interesting question. At what point do you think you came to realize that the series was, becoming trash, basically?
I mean, yeah, I would definitely say I would say Sonic Heroes was probably that time.
I would agree.
That was, I kind of enjoyed the game initially, but it just overall was quite bad, and it didn't feel like the way a huge, platforming release from a character like that should have been.
Yeah, I agree. That was the first time I really remember being frustrated with the game and being annoyed by the characters, the voices and stuff like that, being annoyed by the silly plot or lack of plot. And even though that game did some good things with bringing back old characters and everything like that, it definitely felt like, wow, we're really starting to kind of get bad here. Because there had been aspects to the adventure games that we didn't like, the shooting elements, fishing, and all of that. And that was, with Heroes, it was like, rather than focusing on the strengths of the series, they kind of just, I don't know, there was just like this lack of development, and they couldn't get the controls right, they couldn't get the camera right, and it just kind of boring level design, ugly to look at, other than the character models, and bland music. That's another thing we should mention. I mean, the music used to be so fantastic, and it started to turn into this weird, surfer rock vibe, and it's just really strange decisions that didn't help it at all.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, Sonic Heroes was just bad, I mean, yeah, that's just pretty much all to that. I mean, the entire series, just got so terrible. And I mean, yeah, I think, the one thing that it is a good point is definitely the music. And I mean, just the overall direction that Sonic was taking. It wasn't that the games themselves had just gotten bad, but the direction of the series, the way they, incorporated music into it, everything had just kind of changed. So even, aside from the fact that they weren't good games, it just felt like at this point, a series with a totally different, vibe, or a totally different goal, so, and that was, I think, another thing that helped to make the series feel like it was, definitely at that point garbage.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's, I mean, we've gone kind of through the timeline here. I mean, after that, there's not a lot. There's a lot of Wii stuff, kind of obscure games. And then we had sort of a revival with the boost gameplay and all of that. And that takes us kind of to where we are today with Sonic Mania and Sonic Forces being the two most recent titles in the series. One pretty good, one pretty mediocre. I'll let you guys figure out which ones those are. But one thing we wanted to do today was to rank, to have two separate top 5 lists, basically splitting the series up into first party and third party. So if we look at first party Sonic games, meaning games that were made by Sega for Sega consoles, we have a top 5 list for all of these. So number 1, Mars, I'll let you go.
Oh, well, I was going to go back to front.
You're going to go back to front. Okay. We'll do it that way. So let's go to number 5 then.
So number 5 is going to be Sonic 3D Blast.
Sonic 3D Blast.
So, this is the top 5 of the good games, right?
Yes.
So the good 5.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of ironically, first party games tend to be good and the third party ones tend to be not so good. But yeah, Sonic 3D Blast number 5. This is a game I got for Christmas on the Sega Saturn, and I remember it very well for that reason. It was developed by Traveler's Tales, and it didn't have very close of resemblance to the classic Sonic games as far as gameplay goes, but it looked pretty cool. It had cool special stages. It had good music, and I had a little stuffed Sonic the Hedgehog that came with the game, which I still have today. So I have very fond memories of this game.
Yeah, and for me, I had this memory of distinctly asking my dad, like, rent this game on the Saturn, not the Genesis. And then of course he comes home from Blockbuster with the Genesis version. And so me and my sister had to like pull our Genesis out and connect it and play it. But then eventually I actually got it on PC, and I didn't even have it on Saturn for like, I definitely didn't have it, on Saturn during its life cycle, but the PC version was basically the same as the Saturn version. And so, it was just, I mean, it was the best at that time, the best thing we got to having a 3D Sonic game. And so I'll always remember it for that. It was the generation Sonic skipped, but we did at least still get that title.
Yes. Well, and we should note here that too that this top 5 list is more subjective. We're not necessarily saying any people might cry foul of Sonic 3D Blast being included.
Oh yeah, they
on
definitely
any list.
Will.
Oh yeah, but these are the games that were big to us and games that felt felt good and were kind of branded in our memories that we agreed upon. So number 4, we've got Sonic Adventure 2.
Definitely do Sonic Adventure 2. And yeah, I mean, Sonic Adventure 2. It's a classic, I guess.
It's funny that we have to talk about it that way.
Right. No, yeah, but I mean, no, definitely, it's one of these games that, yes, as time went on, we definitely found a lot of flaws in it, and definitely realized that there were things that could have been done better. But at the time, it was crazy. And I mean, and I know I did mention earlier that Sonic had definitely changed up his vibe and its music. And Adventure 2 definitely did do that, but I think it also tried to incorporate a lot of different styles. Because if you listen to like the Knuckles music or the Rouge music, the Robotnik music, the Shadow music, it's all different types of music. So, even if I didn't like all the songs, particularly the Sonic ones, they did at least make a very big attempt at like putting a lot of stuff into this game and packing it with different types of content and make it like a big, good experience, which is something I feel like I don't feel like they've done that since then. That was like the last one really. that I think really felt like a, first party, huge platformer. I think that was like the last one for sure. I mean, it was the last one,
literally.
It's Sonic. So, they should feel like big games.
Mm-hmm. And it did kind of bring back a little bit of the edginess that we had known Sonic for. A little bit of the attitude with the kind of the rivalry going with Shadow, and the story was a little crazy. There's a part where, spoilers, but it seems like Sonic gets killed, and then, of course, he ends up not getting killed. But you can play as the bad guys. You can take over the world if you want, or you can play as the good guys, save the world. It had that whole kind of thing going for it, which was definitely a lot edgier than, Super Mario Sunshine or whatever. So
I mean the first stage of the game is Sonic escaping and then running away from the police.
Yeah, and the military.
And the military, then them catching him, them putting him in jail, and then the next stage is Tails breaking him out.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it had some edge.
Yeah, there's the threat of a giant space station crashing into Earth and killing everyone. Yeah, it was definitely a little more in that category, but not quite as good as number 3 on our list, which is Sonic Adventure.
Sonic Adventure. How could it not be there? And that one was just, I mean, this was what we had been waiting for since I'd like to say since 94, but truthfully, since we had seen Super Mario 64, since that game came out and we saw what they were doing, we wanted that. And again, we're not saying that, looking back with a clear head, is Sonic Adventure as good as Mario 64? Not even close, right? But at the time when it came out and it was available for play, the demo was available for play in Babbage's, when there were only, screenshots of it in EGMs, it was, to me, it was just the greatest thing ever. You know, and that, yeah. I mean, as honestly, especially before I had played it, because for most of that time, I just thought it was going to be a Sonic game. You know, I didn't know that I was going to have to play as, you know, his ragtag group of weirdo friends as well. You know, but you know, just seeing those screenshots and just knowing that that existed and that this was going to be what the Dreamcast was going to bring us, like that's enough for me to always have that game on the list.
Yeah. Well, and two, because we didn't get, you know, the full 3D Sonic platformer on the Sega Saturn that we've been expecting. So this was the first time we were seeing these characters in 3D. It was the first time we were hearing them speak, you know, in a game, basically. Right. And, you know, I mean, full voice acting throughout the whole game. And, you know, by and large, the soundtrack of this game is really excellent as well. It's got some great, I mean, outside of the character themes, I think it's got some really great, you know, pretty much all the Sonic stages, I think, have pretty good music. And then, you know, E102's got some good ones as well. He's the robot. So, I mean, this game, you know, outside of it just being the new Sonic game that was launching the Dreamcast, I think it did a lot to really push the series into the future.
No, wait a minute now. Outside of the character themes, Unknown from ME is a classic. Unlike Sonic, I don't chuckle.
Yeah. Okay.
I flex my motherfucking muscles. Come on, that song is dope.
Yeah, most people don't know that they say motherfucking in that song. It's true.
Right. It's in the real lyrics.
It's look it up on Genius.
But you know, and you know, one thing that I will say about those is you know, it was also the first time that we heard like lyrics and like Sonic music. Mm-hmm. So actually I think a lot of the songs, even like some of the ones that I don't necessarily like, I think have good music to them. But then like the lyrics can kind of make things a bit strange, you know, because I think it just made things too clear for who the characters were. You know, I didn't need Big to be a redneck. You know, he could have just listened to that kind of.
Well, I mean, he was basically just like a, I don't know, special needs or something. I don't know. Right. I mean, but there's a great video on YouTube of a guy talking about everything wrong with Sonic Adventure. He's this British guy, and he talks about when he gets to Big the Cat. He says, you know, if you heard someone talking like this, you'd think he was taking the piss, and that's a great way to describe Big. Maybe he's just taking the piss. You know, he's the most brilliant character in the whole game. And you know, while we're speaking of videos, I'm gonna plug Dreams Revisited on Mars Vindicator's YouTube, because I think he did a really excellent analysis of Sonic Adventure 1 and all the aspects of that game. So if you want to know more about the way we feel about that game, you definitely go check that video out as well.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, of course. But anyway, moving on, we have Sonic 2 is number 2 on our list.
Sonic 2. Now, this right here, you know, being when we were born and, you know, the time that we started to play Sonic games, I can honestly say that this is the one that started it all for me. I have definitely played Sonic 1 for sure. You know, I definitely do enjoy that game. And that game, I think, is objectively the third best Sonic game ever. But you know, here we are with number 2. So not only is Sonic 2 objectively the best Sonic game, I think it's subjectively too. It just started it all. You know, I mean, at the time I didn't know it was a new move, but you know, now Sonic had the spin dash. I mean, you know, he had Tails as a partner. You know, he was able to I think he could become Supersonic now.
Yes.
You know, they you know, for it to be a game that came out 1 year later, you know, on a 16-bit system in a major franchise, I think they did a great job with adding a lot of, you know, useful, you know, like good content. I mean, it had 2-player.
Yes, had the race mode. Yep.
You know, I think they had finally found the best way to like play out acts and levels. You know, there just being 2 of them instead of the 3. You know, nothing feels too drawn out except for Metropolis.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, I mean that made it very, very good.
Yeah, and overall, just a longer, more ambitious game. Way more stages than Sonic One had. A lot of visual variety in the stages as well. Music, which was, interestingly, I think Sonic One has a lot more iconic songs in it than Sonic 2 has. So Sonic 2, I guess you could probably consider that like a low point for the soundtracks in the Genesis series, which I'm just kind of realizing that.
You think so?
I think so.
I mean, okay, okay, yeah,
a low point, relative,
yeah,
it's still good.
Like, I think like a huge stress on the relative. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's yeah, it's like I like Thriller and I like Dangerous more than I like Bad, but like, it would still be hard for me to say like it's a low point between the two.
Well, relatively speaking, it's a low point because when I think of like the iconic Sonic tunes between those two games, I'm gonna think more of Green Hill Zone, Spring Yard, Starlight, and from Sonic 2, are there any that are really on that same level? I don't know.
I mean,
this is a side riff, but
I don't know. I definitely think Chemical Plant is up there.
Oh, true. Yeah,
I definitely think Sky Chase is up there. I definitely think Metropolis is up there. I even think Oil Ocean is up there, and I think Mystic Cave is up there.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Also, the 2-player Casino Night is pretty cool too.
2-player Casino Night, yeah.
Actually, pretty much all those 2-player songs I like in that game.
Good. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and it's like, yeah. I kind of hear what you're saying, but it's like, and then too, well, that's the funny thing about that, because like, yeah, we all know Green Hill Zone is the Sonic song, right? But truth be told, that got retconned into my memory, like, or I should say, like, there was like retroactively made the Sonic song in my memory, right? Because launching that up with Emerald Hill Zone, like, if you would have asked me when I was like 6 what the Sonic song is, I would have said it was Emerald Hill Zone. So.
Yeah, but we should mention too that I think, for both of us, it was Sonic 2 was the first game that we played. So
yes,
when I did get Sonic 1 on Genesis, it was like the Sega Classics edition or whatever. It didn't even have the original cover. But anyway, yeah, Sonic 2, not to take anything away from the game, it's a fantastic game. Like I was saying, it's ambitious, lots of stages, lots of classic Sonic imagery and material. Sprites that got used as well in Sonic CD. So, that game sprung roots that we're seeing, throughout the rest of the series for sure. And, number one on the list, I don't think anyone's going to be surprised, is Sonic 3 and Knuckles.
Yeah, there's just zero competition here. There is not a better there's just not a better Sonic experience out there. I think that there are very, very few 2D platforming experiences, that compare to this period, even outside of Sonic. So
I can see that.
That's me. The music is just like, I'm at a loss for words,
Well, yeah, if we're going to talk about classic,
made by Michael Jackson.
Yeah, if we're going to talk about classic iconic themes, they're all spectacular in this game.
They're all there, and it's like, we talk about the ambition of Sonic 2, but Sonic 3 was so ambitious they had to release it in 2 parts.
Mm-hmm. And the second part became this weird add-on game that you could plug other cartridges into. And you could plug Sonic 2 into Sonic and Knuckles, and you could play as Knuckles in Sonic 2. That's how, like, they thought of everything when they released these 2 games as one game, basically. But
No, they just they just definitely did. I mean, yeah, like I mean, you could save in this one,
Hmm.
you
For the
know,
first time.
yeah, like it was. I mean,
You
and
had
then
to.
of course, yeah, you
You're not gonna
definitely
sit
had to
down and
save,
play the entirety of Sonic 3 and Knuckles in one sitting.
right, and then Knuckles and Tails got hyper forms as well, and then you also got hypersonic, so it just, I mean, yeah, it was just on a total other level,
Yeah, you had multiple
and
special stages.
right, you know, eh, and the sub boss music, which they unfortunately did change in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but
Yeah, and they
you
even
know,
got rid of a boss, the final boss from just vanilla Sonic 3,
right,
was removed from the final game.
full thing, that is true. And I mean, and that it introduced Knuckles, which this may be a strange thing for some, but I as an African American gamer, you know usually there's this kind of thing where you tend to try to like find someone who is like you. And so like, it maybe a lot of people didn't do this, but I know, other gamers who did. Like Knuckles like felt black to me. And then it helped that he, appeared with like these like hard hitting hip hop beats, and like the way his hair, it looked like he had dreads, and he was just like, he just brought like a different type of soul to the series. And so that's one thing that I always really remember, and that was definitely really dope to me.
Yeah, yeah.
It
I
was
mean,
like,
super interesting character, and the way they introduced him as, is he good? Is he bad? What's he out? What's he trying to do? Why is he taking the emeralds from me? What's going on with this character?
right? No, yeah, definitely. And yeah, 'cause, and he had this kind of like, like where like on one end of the spectrum, they do portray him as somebody who really cares about these emeralds and this thing that he does. And he can be a teammate to Sonic, but then he also is kind of like a bit of an asshole. He's foiling his plans, messing him up, because it's like, it just added a different element to the whole Sonic storytelling. It went from just being good and bad to Knuckles being like, look, I'm trying to protect the emeralds. Like I don't care if you're taking them or Robotnik is taking them. I'm
Hmm.
protecting this. So like that, it was kind of like maybe one of the first times that Sonic actually had some good story elements in the actual games themselves.
Oh yeah, that story for Sonic 3 Knuckles is excellent. And even though it takes a lot from Star Wars, I mean the Death Egg is basically just the Death Star. I
Right.
think just the way they execute that whole saga in that game and incorporate all the floating island and all of that stuff, I think is really great. And I will say I am biased to this because you know kind of early 2000s ish or whatever, I was really into reading like Sonic fan fiction for a while. And there was one really excellent one where they took the story of Sonic 3 and Knuckles and they wrote it in this really like realistic, gritty fashion. And I just thought, wow, like this story, like it can be done that way. It was that it had all of the elements to be this like big, superb drama. And so I think that was it was pretty awesome to see that in this 2D game with no voice acting and not even like text on the screen or anything like that. I mean, it was all just visual storytelling, and just great pacing. Just we can't say enough about this game.
Right. So yeah, so Sonic 3 and Knuckles, that's hands down the best Sonic experience, period. You know.
Yep.
So
You
that's
know,
that.
honorable mention to Sonic 1, but to us, it was not as important as these ones.
Exactly.
So lastly, we got to go over our top 5 third-party Sonic games. And
And keep in mind here, when we say third party, what we mean is Sega is a third party company.
yes.
Yeah, not necessarily that these were made by third parties. And I think this is important because, I mean, Sonic does have like a reputation as being a terrible series now, but I think there are some decent games. None of them have, the scope or the level or the grand feel of Adventure 2 or Sonic 3 and Knuckles. But there are some good Sonic games out that are recent, and so we'd like to spend just a bit of time, talking about those.
All right. So number 5 to set the tone, Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing.
Exactly. And this is just going to be a quick thing. I think what makes Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing good is that, first of all, it's a decent and playable game, which is something to say for recent Sonic games. But it also does a lot to incorporate other Sonic franchises, other Sega franchises into it. And that's something that Nintendo has always done extremely well and Sega never did. And it was great to finally see Sonic, be responsible for his brethren.
Yeah. Ryo Hazuki and, Knights and all those characters.
Radio, Billy Hatcher.
Yeah, making appearances. Yeah, that was good on them.
Right.
Number 4, Sonic Generations.
Sonic Generations. And now this game, I would probably say I personally think it's objectively the best 3D Sonic game. Like post like Dreamcast. But one thing about it is that all it does is take levels basically from old games and put them in 3D. And then finally, like what's something we had been begging for like, more than 10 years before it came out was like, can we just play as Sonic, So you finally do get to do that, but of course it's 2 different Sonics. They had to do something.
They had to do something.
But at the very least it was that. And it was kind of, one of the first times you saw them do this 3D, 2D thing, and that was done all right. Again, a lot of what makes the game feel good is the nostalgia factor. So you can't attribute it all to the game itself, but overall it was done decently.
Yes, I agree. And it was awesome to see all the stages get revived in 3D for the first time. Chemical Plant and all of that.
Right, yeah, for the first time.
We're talking
to you, Sonic Forces.
Yeah, I know. Let's do it again. Number 3. Now this one's interesting because it's a collection. It's the Sonic Advance series for the Game Boy Advance.
And so now Queasy, you never had a Game Boy Advance.
No, I never had a Game Boy Advance. I never have even touched any of these games. I'll just be honest.
So I did I did have a Game Boy Advance, and it was crazy because this should be noted as this was the first this was like the first, I would say, quote unquote major third party Sonic game, and like the first one to like appear on like a console from another major company. Because there was the one on Neo Geo Pocket Color or whatever, and there was like Sonic Jam on like the Gamescom or something, but who gives a damn about that shit, This was Sonic on Nintendo, which up until this point,
blasphemy.
It's like you guys got to understand, we're not. Yeah, some of you may be used to seeing this, but like seriously, like imagine Halo 6 being on the PlayStation 4. Like that sounds absurd, right? Mm-hmm. It was that absurd back then to see Sonic on the Game Boy Advance. But even though we had yearned so long for 3D games, by this time we kind of missed 2D Sonic a little as well. So it was dope to finally be able to go back to that. They did take some things and add some other dope features to it. Obviously on the Dreamcast, you could put Chow on the VMU if you were playing the adventure games. And so since the GameCube didn't exactly have something like that, when they ported the adventure games to the GameCube, you could do a cool Chow Garden thing with the Game Boy Advance games. And then also like I also really liked Sonic Advance 3 because they brought back the whole play as Sonic and Tails at the same time, and like they went full on with the whole partner mechanics, and that was something I'd always wanted to see them flesh out more in Sonic games. So I like the series just for those elements.
Yeah, I think it was a good series. And it's a good home for Sonic. I think is on mobile platform as well.
Oh yeah, and it brought us Cream.
Oh, my favorite character.
Exactly.
Cream and cheese.
Yeah.
Lovely. Yeah, we never really got into that, but that's the whole crew of just meaningless characters that started to appear in these third-party games is pretty ridiculous, but that's probably another topic for another day. Although the next game on this list, Sonic Unleashed, which I really like. I think Sonic Unleashed is highly underrated. But it did introduce, rather than having Tails, as the obvious sidekick to Sonic, it introduced a whole new character named Chip, who is this weird flying fairy-looking thing, to be your sidekick throughout the entire game for some reason. And of course, the infamous Werehog stages, where you play, when you play the stages in daytime, you play as regular Sonic, and nighttime you play as Werehog Sonic, which is sort of like a brawler format and platforming and a much slower pace. But the speed stages in this game had excellent level design, and actually throughout the entire game, you had great music. So I think Sonic Unleashed, this game got bad reviews. It came out at a bad time for the series when it was kind of down on its luck, and it had a string of, big failures, basically. Right. So it got a lot of bad reviews because I think people were trying to, a lot of outlets were probably trying to make a point that, like, this isn't good enough. Like, you're not trying hard enough. But it's definitely better than the 3.0 or whatever it was that GameSpot gave it. And I think this game is probably, for me, it's my favorite. I'd say it's my favorite 3D Sonic game. I'm just gonna go out there and say that.
I can definitely see that. I think it definitely is the best 3D like original Sonic game. Again, well, for me at least, again, post Dreamcast, but. Because they just had like this hard time with bringing new ideas. They always brought these strange ideas. And while I thought, while the Werehog is necessarily my favorite, the levels were kind of long and tedious, but they did play okay.
Yeah, they weren't that bad. They were just overly long.
Exactly, and so I'll definitely give it a lot of credit for that.
Yeah. And finally,
guess
again, this probably will be no surprise. It's Sonic Mania.
Yeah, I mean, could it be anything else? And on one end of the spectrum, it hurts to say that it's Sonic Mania because it basically just shows that not only can Sega not make a good Sonic game anymore because they're not the ones who made it, they also can't make good music for Sonic games anymore because they're not the ones that made that. And it also just shows that, everything that they've made since '94 has just been overall seen as garbage. And that in order to make Sonic good, you have to go back to '94. And that's what they
literally
did, So, yeah, it was pretty much a Genesis game. I mean, Sega CD 32X-ish, it's just like its upper limits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it comes with the reversible Sega Genesis cover on the special edition of Sonic Mania Plus, which is coming out. What do you think about that series, Sonic Mania? I mean, is this something you think they're going to turn into like an ongoing thing?
I mean, they definitely could. I mean, I think that they should at this point. It would be good to see a Sonic Mania 2. Hopefully with some more new stages. And I wouldn't mind throwing a bit of old ones in there because I think that adds to the whole mania of it. But yeah, it would be cool if they made this another series, but I do still think that they need to, now that the hype has died down a bit, they definitely need to get back and focus on making a good new Sonic game. And I think that that's what you were saying all along. And it's not that I never disagree with that. I just wanted to, have fun with the hype while it was there. But yes, now that it's over, let's get a real game.
Yeah, not Sonic Forces.
Right.
Just barely a game. You hold forward and press jump occasionally.
That's just utter garbage.
Yes, it wins the award for most boring Sonic game ever made. I don't know, any final comments on Sonic Legacy, Sonic history, Sonic shit?
I mean, just that it's definitely interesting the way that 4 years, how he's just basically survived this long off of 4 years of popularity. And I've mentioned this more than once in these podcasts. I have been on the other side of the pond, and I've seen I felt like one thing that they always used to tell us here, especially during the Saturn era, was like, oh, well, it's popular in Japan. That's just like an easy, like, let out for, when your, character from Japan starts to suck here. But he also, I'm certain he has much less respect there than he ever did here. Sega is basically relegated to just being a company that makes arcades now, and people just kind of recognize him as such. They just recognize him as a Smash character. And, I guess if there's anything that I want new Sonic fans or people that are just, that they see this character to know is that, yeah, I mean, yes, it ain't where you're from. It's where you're at. And I definitely believe in this wholeheartedly. But at the same time, you got to know where you came from to know where you're going. So I just wish people would understand that at one point in time, Sonic was as big as Pikachu. He was as big as Mario. I mean, that's, I understand how crazy that sounds to a lot of you, but I lived through both of those in their initial time, and they felt quite similar. One of them just didn't last for 20 years.
No, didn't last very long at all.
So yes, but yeah, I mean, overall in my eyes, Sonic will always still be a GOAT character, even if he only had those 4 years. I mean, he was the mascot of a major console, manufacturer. So
yeah,
he definitely has earned his stripes.
Yeah, I'll always be a Sonic fan, no matter how many terrible games come out.
Right, because it doesn't change the fact that Sonic 3 and Knuckles is top 5 platformers of all time.
And yeah, nothing will ever change that. Well, I think that about wraps it up for episode number 8 of Status Quo. Happy birthday to Sonic the Hedgehog.
Birthday.
And yes, happy, what is this, like 20 or 30? I don't even know what we're up to now.
I don't think it's like 20.
Well, no, it's 25, 27, something like that.
Yeah, it's definitely 27. It's 91.
Right, gotta be. Okay. Yeah. Status Quo, hyperevo.com. Check us out.
Got a lot of content coming.
Oh, yes, we do. Yeah, this is Queasy Crayfish, Mars Vindicator. And we'll see you next Monday on SoundCloud and YouTube.
We're out.
We're out. Goodbye.